You are in Turkey?
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh my God. Yeah, this interest should be every must have. Yeah.
It's I got a phone call from Brother Salim at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Acha, acha.
Alhamdulillah, because it's almost 2.5 hours, 3 hours behind
Yeah.
India,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Now it is 7 o'clock in India.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, never mind. Inshallah, we'll
Yeah.
continue the session, but there is some, because my phone is on international roaming, so there
Acha,
is
acha.
a network issue. So
Yeah.
if it goes out, please
Yeah.
bear with me.
Inshallah, inshallah.
All right. So we were talking about day one in a lesson planning approach system. And we discussed about how to pose the question, how to introduce the topic to the students, and how to move along with the topic, and how to introduce the question of who made the trees, how to introduce that idea of things being made. Then we talked about the trees and everything else doing zikr of Allah, right? And how to introduce that concept. Then we talked about flowers as a product of the plants and how to introduce that concept. What will you say to introduce about flowers? Right? Maybe when you go, you ask the students when they pass through a garbage bin, what kind of smell do they get? And you've got to act accordingly, right? You get a very nice smell. The students will themselves respond, no, we get a foul smell, we get a bad smell. Okay, so where do you get good smell from? Then they will say ether, maybe they will say perfume. Some of them might say flowers, or you might introduce flowers. So this is the method you introduce things. You do not, as I had said last time also, and as I've always been telling to the teachers, they do not introduce anything like a news reader. Introduce it in an interesting manner, in a manner which will be engaging for the students, right? And then you say that you get different kinds of flowers and discuss about different flowers. You can show the photographs of flowers. If you can bring the physical flowers, even better. Maybe you can show the videos of the flowers, lily and sunflower and rose, the different flowers. So now you've discussed that topic, right? Then we've got to introduce medicine. We get medicine from the trees, right? There are medicinal herbs, and you get a lot of medicine from the trees, especially herbal medicine and Unani medicine, and you get from trees. So how are you going to introduce the concept of medicine being obtained from trees? Again, option one would be just declare it. You also get medicine from the trees, full stop. Now repeat after me. No, again, that's not the way. What do we do? Unfortunately, this is not a physical class. Had it been a physical class, I would have got responses, right? Can we try getting responses on the chat box? How can we introduce the concept of medicine? I want responses. There are 45 people logged in. Kindly give me responses on the chat box. Without declaring that we get medicine from the trees, how do you introduce that issue, that topic? And how do you discuss that with the students? Anybody willing to type it out in the chat box? When you get fever, what do you do? Brother Nasima said, very true, very true. Fantastic, very good. You are interacting with them, you are talking to them. What you'll ask them that what do we do or what do we consume when we fall sick, right? Do we eat chocolates when we fall sick? Use this statement. Now, is this statement written in the textbook? Do we eat chocolates when we fall sick? Obviously, the statement is not written in the textbook. Everything is not written in the textbook, correct? Yeah, when we are sick, what do we do? When we get fever, what will you do? Right? Sister Rabia, Sister Rafia, mashallah, everyone has started responding, alhamdulillah. Very true. So the question is, what do we do when we fall sick? Do we eat chocolates? Do we eat ice cream when we fall sick? Right? Do we drink cold drink when we fall sick? Now the students will say, no, we take medicine. So then now you have introduced the idea of medicine, right? Now you will start saying, what do the doctors prescribe when you fall sick? Right? Sister Nisar's Fatima says that. Very, very good. And that is how you move on. Right? So obviously the doctors don't prescribe Cadbury chocolates and ice creams, right? Then you say they prescribe medicine. And you know from where you get a lot of medicine? You get lots of this medicine from the trees. Now you cannot get into the biological and medical details because you're dealing with second, third standard students, right? But you are introduce this thing in an interactive manner. That is the key point to be learned here. Interaction, engagement, this is the key. Now, cows and buffaloes, what do they eat? They eat grass. This is another thing that you get from the plant kingdom, right? Grass and stuff which the cattle eat. Now, how do you introduce that to the students? Do you tell them, I do declare that cows and buffaloes eat grass and we get grass from plants, full stop? Again, no. What do? If you're hungry, what do? You ask the students. If you're hungry, what do? Students will say, we eat food. Very good, you eat food. When the cow and the buffalo, and supposingly that they know what a cow and buffalo is, if they don't, then show them the picture what a cow is and what a buffalo is. When a cow and the buffalo feel hungry, what do they eat? Do they eat biscuits? Have you ever seen, or do they eat chocolates? Or do they eat ice cream? Have you ever seen a buffalo or a cow eating biscuits or ice cream? The students will say no. And the students, some of the students themselves will respond, no, they eat grass, right? And if they don't respond, you have to fill in the gap. If they don't eat biscuits, they don't eat ice cream, they eat grass, right? So where do you get grass from? Now imagine this happening in a classroom. Imagine this interaction developing, taking form in a classroom. And imagine how engaging that classroom becomes. And this is what you're supposed to do. It's very unfortunate that I'm not physically present in front of you. This topic of lesson planning becomes very, very, very lively and interesting. Very good. Someone said, Riaz Ahmed, brother, he says, what will your mother give when you're sick? Biryani or medicine? Fantastic. Fantastic. So you're getting, all of you brothers and sisters, mashallah, getting the rhythm which I'm trying to develop. Mashallah, alhamdulillah, I'm so happy. So this is how you're supposed to get through with the process of explaining the chapter, opening up the chapter, elucidating the chapter, right? Then you come to another point. You have furniture, wood. We are coming to the point of wood now. You make furniture out of wood, and then you have firewood as well, right? So similarly, you can ask questions. What kind of furniture you have at home? Do you have, now if they don't understand the word furniture, you've got to explain. Furniture means the table, the wardrobe, the cupboards, right, that you have at your home. This is called as furniture. Now that furniture is made of what? What is the furniture made of? Is it made of water? Is it made of clothes? Is the furniture made of milk? You ask them. And this is a technique. By using words which are clearly not the answer, and that prompts the students to respond, no, not milk. Furniture is made of wood, is made of plywood or wood. It's not made of milk, it's not made of water, right? Then the student, and you say, yes, you know where you get the wood from? By now, the students are very, very clear. Everything when the teacher asks where you get this from, it is plant, right? So we get it from the plant. Right. So now you ask about firewood, right? What does, now this is interesting. Firewood, you get firewood from the plant kingdom. You get firewood from the trees. But this is very interesting. How do you introduce firewood? Can anybody respond? How do you introduce firewood? Because firewood is something that many of the students will in Bangalore. So what is it that we are going to do? How are you going to respond? Have you ever done campfire? Oh, interesting. Sister Najima says, have you ever done campfire? This is interesting. But maybe some of them might have done that. How do you begin with the concept? Campfire is a good idea. This, you see, when we are discussing this lesson planning, it is not as if there is any 100% wahi that is coming in, that this is the only way you're going to follow. You can come up with many ideas. I am giving you just a roadmap, a sample roadmap, how people used to cook before. Very good, interesting. Just imagine that we are in the jungle, gone for a tour. Matchstick, some fantastic ideas, mashallah. Mashallah, the teachers of Omiyat are all very active in thinking. Mashallah, fantastic, very good. I'll give you, and all of these ideas are valid. You know, you can talk about gone for a jungle tour, and when you don't have a stuff, what do you do? Very good. Maybe we can combine ideas. What can we do? Maybe I'll begin, for instance, I'll begin by saying that to talk about the idea, have you seen the people cook biryani on the road without using gas stove? Sister Rabia says that. Fantastic. Very good. Very good. And all of these are valid ideas. All of these are valid techniques to introduce the concept of firewood. Mashallah. I'll give you my take on it. The way I would begin this concept would be, what does your mother cook food on? I'll begin from the very first step. What does your mother cook food on? Does she cook food on the fridge? Right? And the moment you say, does she cook food on the fridge? The students will say no, right? She doesn't cook fruit in the fridge, or she doesn't cook fruit on the fridge. So what does she cook fridge on? Sorry, what does she cook food on? And the students will reply, she cooks food on the stove, on the gas. Then you've got to introduce the idea. What if you have gone, as if we can combine these, what if you have gone in a jungle and there is no stove and there is no cylinder, right? Then what do you cook food on? Or maybe you can talk about when you, in the olden days, in the villages where there were no stoves and where there were no cylinders, gas cylinders, right? How people used to cook food. There was no stove. There was no, cylinders, gas cylinders. What you used to do? You can post this question, right, to them, and you can make them answer. Or you can introduce the idea which some of you have done, that who cooks when they cook biryani on the road, if they're doing it on the fire, right? So you can ask them these questions, but then and there could be a caveat in this, in the sense that if the one who cooks food, the biryani on the road, he might be cooking it on something called as, in Bombay we call it as a sigdi. I don't know what you call that in Tamil. We call it sigdi in Bombay, and you use coal in that. Coal, but coal is not where you want them to land. We don't want to take them to coal. We want to take them to firewood, right? So if we move towards coal, then we get stuck. So you've got to be a little careful about that. Yes, jungle tour, that can be used. But now this is the point. By the time we come to this point, we can introduce the idea of firewood. We can show them pictures. We can show them a clip of a video, maybe where firewood is being used. Nowadays, people don't use firewood. And even when you go to jungles, I remember I'd gone to a jungle and we were trying to. It was not a jungle; it was a village, but very, very a village surrounded with jungles, you can say. And I was in a bad shape because we were very hungry, we were tired, our group of people, and we couldn't light that firewood. So we went a little distance away. We got some kerosene, and I put some kerosene on the firewood just to get it ignited, and it burnt, but only while the kerosene was there on the wood. Once the kerosene was used up, it's again got switched off the fire. So this is what happens with people like us who live in cities. They cannot quite relate with the jungle life or the village life, right? That's quite an interesting story. So we introduce firewood, we show them videos or maybe a photograph, and introduced it to them what a firewood is and what from where you get the firewood. Now, we come to another point, that is scaffolding, bamboo, right? We get bamboo also from trees. We get bamboo from trees. So how do you introduce bamboo? We get bamboo from trees. One way is directly showing the photograph. See, this is the bamboo and we get it from the trees, full stop. Again, that is not the approach. So what you ask them, okay, let me put that question before I telling you. How do you introduce bamboo to the students? Anybody in the chat box? Introducing bamboo to the students. How do you do that? I'm waiting for responses. Yes, bamboo. Anyone? How do you introduce bamboo to the students? You know what a bamboo is, right? Bamboo, the big, long sticks that you have that you call bamboo. Float, okay. Making, what do you mean by float exactly? Bamboo floats on water and then you make that plank out of bamboo. Shamiana, okay, shamiana, right. We can ask about the types of houses. Flute, interesting, all interesting response. Have you seen the pandal in the marriage? Very good. The pandal is made of bamboo. You can talk about that, the pandal. Furniture, swing, very good, furniture. A lot of furniture today is made of swing, especially the swinging chairs, right? Have you eaten bamboo biryani? Interesting. So I'll give you my take. All are very interesting responses, and we can all use this as a part of, this is what we're developing in the chat box is treasure. It's really treasure. It's a collection of ideas, right? Thinking minds coming together, pouring in their ideas. This is beautiful. In fact, training sessions should be like that, where you have collection of ideas pouring in. But we have limitation of time, and we have this online media where it's very difficult to get prompt responses. That's the challenge. Otherwise, the real training session should always be wherein all of this pooling in of ideas happens, mashallah. Flute, mashallah, very good. And all of these things are valid. These are all valid responses, mashallah. I particularly liked the one with the bamboo furniture, right? One that came to my mind is that maybe you can ask them a question, because remember, every now and then you've got to bring in the aspect of humor as well. And this humor is, again, not written down in the textbook. This is being done to engage them, get them connected, to engage them, right? To keep them alive to what is unfolding in the classroom. You can ask them, have you ever seen a painter painting the outside walls of a building? The outside walls, a four-story building, 5-story building, 7-story building. Have you seen a painter painting the outside walls? So Who paints those outside walls? Because the 7-story outside, how can you paint? Maybe you need a Superman. Does Superman flies in and paint? Is it Superman who paints? No, obviously you build a scaffolding, and then you can show the photograph of bamboo scaffoldings, right? And nowadays people use stainless steel scaffolding. It's reducing. Bamboo scaffolding usage is reducing, and steel scaffolding is increasing nowadays. But still, in certain places, bamboo scaffolding is still being used, right? So you can show the photograph of bamboo scaffolding, and you say that these are bamboo sticks, and they make scaffolding out of it, and the painter climbs on those, right, and then paints it, right? The painter is not a Superman, right? So you're introducing the idea of Superman. What is the advantage of introducing the idea of Superman? It's not the content that is written in the textbook. Superman is not written in the textbook. You introduce Superman because they can relate with Superman. They know what Superman is. They can connect with Superman, right? And then they laugh as well, right? So there is this connection that you're establishing, right? And it is happening by the way, along the chapter. You're moving along with the chapter. Just drop in those funny things, interesting things which the students can relate with. Just by the way, do it and move along. Do it and move along. Do not sit on it. Do not spend too much time discussing about the life story of Superman. That's not the goal, right? So you've got to be very sharp as a teacher, that you've got to introduce things along the way which are just for the sake of establishing the connect with the students, right? This is important, because if suppose a student has got off a bit, and when his ears listen to the word Superman, he comes back. He's listening to trees and plants and trees and flowers and plants. Suddenly he listens to the word in his ears, Superman. So even if he was lost a bit, he will come back. What's happening with Superman? Right? These are small things that you need to do. Actually, I'm teaching you classroom management, the lesson planning. Right. So coming back to what I was saying, and then you can also introduce, as some of the brothers and sisters have talked about, doing the flute. Right. These are all things you can introduce to talk about bamboo, right? So we spend a lot of time on bamboo. Let's move ahead. The different parts of the tree. What are the different parts of the tree? Yeah. So tree, we can talk about the different parts of the face, right? The different parts of the body, right? We can talk about the function of the nose, the air to breathe, right? Similarly, yeah, someone has responded, crafts like basket, dolls, ornaments, yes, that can be used to introduce bamboo as well. Very true. Mashallah. Now, if we need to introduce the concept of that breathing, for instance, the plants also breathe, but they breathe in two different ways. One is in the daytime, they take in carbon dioxide and throw out oxygen, right? Inhale carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen. So how do you introduce that? Then we have we can talk again about the parts of the face, and then you can talk about nose. What does the nose do, right? Then the students will themselves respond. The nose breathes in air and inhales air and exhales air as well, right? Inhales oxygen and exhales carbon dioxide. Now, similarly, you can talk about the plants. The plants also need to breathe. They also breathe. So you can then talk about and elaborate that concept, right? Similarly, we talk about air pollution and how the purity of air and plants clean the air by reverse breathing. Right? We can introduce that concept. When for photosynthesis, you shouldn't use the word photosynthesis because at that stage students don't understand photosynthesis. Right? Students cannot comprehend photosynthesis and chlorophyll and all of that stuff. At second standard age, we've got to be mindful of that. But we can introduce that the plants, they cook food. When to cook food, they also inhale air, right? And when they inhale air to cook food, and we inhale air from the nose, right? But if you get into too much detail of photosynthesis of carbon dioxide and oxygen, at second standard, they don't know what carbon dioxide is, right? By and large, right? So we can keep on introducing concepts, and we can discuss these concepts with the students. Now that our topic is shade, the trees also provide shade. How do you introduce the concept of shade? Right? How do you introduce the concept of shade to the students? Can anybody respond on the chat box? In the chat box, how do you introduce the concept of shade to the students? We're running out of time. Maybe we can tell them that when we go back home and it is very hot, very, very hot, if you stand briefly, if we stand under the shade of a tree, we feel hot or we feel cool, right? And then we can discuss this topic further. Maybe we stand under the shade of some shop. Maybe we stand under the shade of some tree. So we introduce the concept. We can show pictures where students or people standing under the shade while walking. When we are tired, where do we stand? Yes, we can talk about it, right? So all these things we can discuss with our students. We can talk about shade, and then the students realize what shade means, and shade gives you a little bit of coolness, right? So the canopy of trees also provide shade, which is very good. In school playground, if we have a tree in the school playground and we get shade under that tree, we can introduce that as well. Very good, right? So these are the things that we need to introduce and we need to talk about with the students. Then there are other things to be discussed, and we are already at 7:30. So inshallah, we'll continue with this process. Next Saturday, I'll be back in India by that time. Inshallah, jazakumullahu khair. And may Allah bless you for the patience that you have showed this morning. Jazakumullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum